The most important communication George King took, and he took over 600, it was the culmination of many transmissions and, more importantly, cosmic actions that had gone on beforehand, with a tremendous infusion of July the 8th, 1964. Dr. George King, in a positive yogic somatic trance, communicated the action as it was being conveyed at that time. It's the most important, the most significant of all the transmissions. A tremendous infusion of cosmic energy being given to the Logos of the Mother Earth, who has withheld herself for these 18 million years. She's denied herself these energies. For our sake, she's held herself back. The karmic law and the living intelligence, the consciousness of the planet, had a choice either to release that energy immediately or gradually. There's a gradual release, but it's playing out, and we're seeing this quickening. Unquestionably, yes, there's an incredible transformation that is going on. We still have free will. There are those who are still tragically and sadly stuck in darkness. Although we each have the choice. We each have the choice. We don't have to be controlled. I don't want to, again, get down rabbit holes or get political about this, because it's essentially and fundamentally, it's a spiritual issue. We all have a conscience. We all have that inner voice of truth. We all have a heart, and we have to have the bravery to listen to it, to hear it, and to act upon it.
My guest today is Paul Nugent, who is a director at the Aetherius Society. Their founder was a man named Dr. George King, who was actually contacted by an entity, an extraterrestrial that he channeled, who identified himself as the Aetherius. And their purpose is to promote wisdom about extraterrestrial intelligence. And he had hundreds of channeled communications. And today we're going to dive in and talk about a topic that I have not gone into very much before. So, Paul, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks very much, Laurie. I think you've kind of summed it up well enough to get us going.
I know that Dr. George King, who you knew personally, was well ahead of his time. I remember seeing that he was shunned by the Extraterrestrial UFO Society, and that was because he was too spiritual. He was shunned by the Spiritual Society because he was too off in what he knew about the ET. And so he's hanging out there in 1954, probably a good 20 years before people started doing things like channeling the law of one. So is that a fair statement?
It's very much a fair statement. That's absolutely correct. I mean, George King was first contacted in 1954, as you rightly say, by an extraterrestrial who went by the name of Aetherius. We believe in intelligence from a higher dimension of Venus, not physical plane Venus, a higher dimension of Venus, just as we have higher dimensions and lower dimensions around this Earth. That was in 1954. There was nothing sort of haphazard about that. Dr. King had spent the previous 10 years practicing yoga for up to 8 hours a day, such that with that intensity, a force we all have called the Kundalini rose up through this Sushumna channel in the spine that we all have, opening the chakras, such that he was able to go into the highest state of meditation known as samadhi. And it was with that ability that he was able to communicate with these extraterrestrials, beings from higher dimensions of other planets in our solar system. Fundamentally, the message that was communicated through them, as you rightly say, over 600 times, was a spiritual message. because at the end of the day and beginning of the day, it's all spiritual. It's all, in inverted commas, if you like, of God. We're all, you mentioned oneness. There is only oneness. We're on this phenomenal divine spiritual journey, literally sort of going back to God in higher states of consciousness. So again, I suppose the religious, again in inverted commas, community shunned Dr. King and by extension the Aetherius Society because, well, that's all extraterrestrials and that's a load of woo, woo, whatever it is. And for the UFO crowd, when they were still called UFOs as opposed to UAPs as they are now, but the flying saucer crowd, they were much more sort of nuts and bolts and little green men and or gray men or whatever, big eyes, and weren't interested in any sort of spirituality being connected with that. But the Aetherius Society has bridged both, and we can't, it's just fundamental. There are, we're here on this evolutionary journey. It goes on, as you know so well, beyond death, but it also goes on beyond this world. And at this point in our evolution, we're relatively, backward in relation to our true full potential. And with our true full potential, then we are no longer bound to this world. It is this almost, you could say, exponential evolutionary journey that we're all making into higher and higher states of consciousness and realization.
Well, Dr. King died almost 30 years ago. What do you think he would think about how society has taken these conversations that were so fringe? And a lot of these are now talks about extraterrestrials, UFOs. I think that they're pretty mainstream now. What do you think you would think about that?
Well, I agree. I mean, they're not only mainstream; they're being discussed in, the House of United States House of Congress. I think he would say it's just inevitable, or humanity. We've lived in the dark for various reasons, but the light you can only sort of cover up the light for so long. It's essential that we change. It's essential that humanity comes into a far greater realization of who we are and what we are a part of within the vastness of creation. And that, I think, is just sort of that whole concept is there's a pressure on humanity to awaken to it. And there's a pressure on all the governments I don't want to sort of get too political about it at all, because again, it's not a political issue. It's a spiritual issue. Humanity at this moment in time obviously has tremendous challenges if we haven't, had throughout our past. Fundamentally, it's a spiritual challenge that we're facing. And that was very much, as I say, the message that was being communicated through Dr. George King, for us to become literally conscious of who and what we are a part of.
Well, the reason that we're having this conversation today is because you reached out to me after you spoke at the Arlington Institute for our mutual friend, John Peterson, who has since gone to the other side. And he really valued the work that you were doing and a book that you had just read. And had you come and speak to the Arlington Institute, and you were or broadcast there anyway, and you were the last, I think one of the last communications that he brought forward before he passed away. He also came on and spoke with me not very long before he passed away. So what do you think he heard from you that was so intriguing that he wanted you to come and broadcast your message to his Arlington Institute group.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you're right. I mean, I have written a book about my experience of knowing Dr. George King and what brought me to the Aetherius Society and what the message is all about, and how these intelligences have watched over us literally for millions of years, and how they have always been there to help us, to guide us, and how they are doing so in this modern time. And so I wrote the book, and I didn't know of John, and I didn't even know of the Arlington Institute, but I came across it, and I thought, well, let me reach out to this man, John Peterson, and I did, and I spoke with him, and I said, well, send me a copy of your book, which I did, and I didn't hear from him for a few months, so I thought, well, let me just sort of call him up again, because one tends not to sort of necessarily hear from people to whom you've sent your book. And he said, well, actually, it's sitting by the side of my bed, and I keep meaning to sort of read it. And a week later, I heard back from John, saying he had read it and he was utterly fascinated and intrigued. He is, I mean, the Arlington Institute is a futurist think tank, and he was very sort of mindful of how humanity, how we have to change, how we are living this time on this planet. And so yes, he invited me to give what he calls what is called a transition talk at the Arlington Institute, which I did last month. I didn't, I mean, I was unaware that John was ill. But he scheduled a Zoom call with me, and it was the last Zoom call he ever had. And I did learn that he had pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
I could tell he was in pain. But anyway, it all went ahead, and the Institute, he died in between time. I was looking forward to meeting John. I didn't meet John, other than by that Zoom call. And the Institute, yes, they felt that it wasn't by chance, if anything is by chance, that John and I had made this contact, and that he wanted to introduce this philosophy, this cosmic teaching, if you like, to the Institute.
So, Paul, Dr. King you said 600 transmissions. And one of the things that I said in the introduction is that they wanted to promote the wisdom of highly evolved intelligence. What wisdom were they hoping to impart to the human race through Dr. King?
Yeah, very good question, Laurie. The elephant in the room was that extraterrestrials exist, but by the very nature of who was communicating with Dr. George King, or through him. But the fundamental message, I suppose, well, the fundamental message is that we're here to evolve. We've been on this earth for over 18 million years. We understand that we came to this earth from a planet we destroyed over 18 million years ago called Maldek. All that remains of Maldek is the asteroid belt. Astronomers are coming around to the sort of thinking and understanding that, that may well have been a planet. There's good evidence for them to think that. They've sort of gone there, retreated from that, going back to look at it. Being part of a oneness, even though we destroyed our world, we couldn't be taken out of creation. We're an aspect of creation, as is obviously everything. Even the fall of a sparrow is known to God. And so this earth was approached as a conscious living entity herself, a highly evolved intelligence, the planet, the logos of the Mother Earth. And she was willing to take this race, this alien race, that had destroyed its world. We came here, albeit under very limited circumstances of evolution. We grew into the civilization of Lemuria, which we destroyed through the intense misuse of atomic power, just as we'd done upon Maldek, by the way. Again, through the whole slow process of reincarnation, we re-emerged into another civilization of Atlantis, again, which we destroyed through the total misuse of atomic weapons. And again, through the slow, long process of reincarnation, we reincarnated into the race we are today. And of course, in the middle of the Second World War, or just prior to that, we started tampering again with the atom, developing atom bombs and later hydrogen bombs, which is exactly where we'd been before in Lemuria and Atlantis. This was sort of during the Second World War, coming out of the Second World War, when flying saucers were being very commonly sighted. It's when the term became coined. Well, that was actually 1947, because these beings from the higher dimensions of our planets had seen us go through this process 3 times before. Here we are again. And it was like a parent sort of coming to a child and saying, put the toys away, or they're dangerous toys. You're spiritual beings. You're here to evolve. Again, the oneness, you're part of a oneness. And, obviously one thing we have is free will. Free will, is there. It's an option. We need to use our free will to get into contact with our, if you like, divine will, that inner, higher intuitive voice of truth and of consciousness, and do that individually and as a species. And so I guess that's the a big part of that message. Put away atom bombs, etc. You're here to evolve. Everything is living. The Mother Earth is a living being who's given us, a place in the cosmos for the last 18 million years to make this evolutionary journey. 18 million years, obviously, to us is a very long time, but in cosmic time, it's a blink of an eye. Not that hasn't been relevant to the Mother Earth. And so, that's the gist of it. We're spiritual beings. We're here to evolve, to advance. Life goes on beyond death and beyond this world.
I completely agree. It's interesting that you brought up the Maldek, Lemuria, and the Atlantis. I have heard that there have been times when people who were tasked with the access to nuclear weapons have been stopped, and technology has been immobilized and made unfunctional, believed to have happened from a higher realm. Was this some of the communication that was imparted to Dr. King, is that these higher intelligent beings were actually stepping in? I guess it's a violation of free will, but also not if it's kind of coming from a loving place. And how do we get around all of that? But is that something that you believe has happened to keep us from blowing ourselves up already?
I certainly believe it's happened. And there's outstanding evidence. This is the kind of thing that's coming up in these disclosure talks in the House of Congress. I mean, you're getting military personnel, people who aren't just obviously idiots, giving personal testimony to this kind of thing. There are numerous accounts of UFOs being seen over nuclear weapons sites and making them, at least for a time, dysfunctional. Apparently there were sightings over Chernobyl. After Chernobyl happened, hundreds of sightings of UFOs, helping to sort of clear up the radiation. They are there insofar as karmic law will allow. Well, they're there to do whatever they can, but there is a limit. But I would agree with you. They are overstepping, well, seemingly overstepping our own free will. But there is a bigger picture, because the destruction, going back to the destruction of Maldek, that wasn't just about us. That was about Maldek as with consciousness itself, highly evolved planetary consciousness that affected this whole solar system. You see, one thing that science and technology are teaching is that we're not the center of the universe. It's not all about us, as was sort of the prevailing thought, I suppose, going back hundreds of years. It's all about us. We're learning how insignificant we are. We're insignificant in the solar system. The solar system is tiny within this galaxy, and yet there are literally there are billions of galaxies. And it's for us to sort of humble ourselves, you could say. But coming, when we do things like the destruction of Maldek, it doesn't just affect us, it affects life beyond us. So no, sorry guys, you can't do that. We're taking your toys away.
I love that. Did Dr. King have any channeled messages where they spoke about how what we do here, much like a person's life, has a ripple effect on all of the other people that are around them, good or bad?
Absolutely.
We have a collective here, an earthly collective, and I believe that we are galactically affecting the cosmos. Did he channel any messages that spoke about how that ripple effect was affecting outside of our earthly sphere?
Yes, he did. And just, in terms of the word channel, he would go into what we call a positive yogic samadhi trance. He was a trained master of yoga, having spent 8 hours a day for 10 years practicing yoga. It brings about, you become a master of yoga. He was a master of yoga. And he would go into this positive, very elevated state, positive yogic samadhi trance. Extremely difficult to do. And but yes, I mean, in answer to that, your question, there was a transmission where the master Aetherius, I think it was, did explain that when we send out a prayer, that prayer, and we're all about prayer. Again, you mentioned we're about service. We're totally about service. That prayer has a ripple effect that goes out, and even in a tiny way, it helps the whole galaxy. You affect your environment, you affect your community, and when, and that it is a matter of when rather than if, when humanity comes into this far greater realization of what we're doing here, what it's really all about, it will be magnificent, and you can just imagine the amount of spiritual energy that collectively we can invoke, love, energy we can invoke, send out to bring miraculous healing, to bring inspiration, whatever it takes, to understand the nature, the devas, the nature spirits, to work in cooperation with the nature spirits. I mean, the reason we have, if you like, storms and drought and all the rest of it is because our negative thoughts and action, that energy vibration goes out and affects the natural environment and pollutes it. And we're here to radiate love on every level, and it will literally bring about, you could say, a perfection. And that is the natural progression that evolution is on. And we're at a cusp. Humanity's at a cusp. There's a tremendous change and a quickening that's going on. And it literally, you could say, and this is another one of the sort of message that was being imparted, is there's a sorting of the wheat from the chaff, to use a biblical term. There literally is, because the earth, who has withheld herself for over 18 million years, again, a long time in our understanding, you could say a blip in cosmic time, but cannot do so indefinitely. She's on her own evolutionary journey. The whole evolution of creation is expanding all of the time at an accelerating speed. Things can only be withheld for so long. So there is a pressure on us to change. Yeah, another very big part of the message.
The Aetherius, did
Society.
they speak about this point in time? There are a lot of us who have conversations. So I have all of these guests who come on who have had near-death experiences and they've been to the other side. They come back, they have medium abilities. A lot of them wind up being channelers, and they are tapping into these higher consciousnesses. And a lot of people have expressed that when they've been on the other side, they have seen evidence that showed that they chose to come here at this point in creation because this is the big show. This is the Earth's chance to flip the collective from a fear-based to a love-based energy heart space as an earthly collective. And it's happening right now. We're in 2025 as we're filming this. Did that group speak about this particular point in time in any of these channeled messages?
Well, first of all, it's not so much a group. We're not the Ethereum. We are the Aetherius Society, named after the first intelligence, we believe, of Venusian intelligence.
Okay.
It goes by
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification.
There were other masters who also communicated through them. But this is, hitting the nail on the head. I mean, the fundamental aspect of their message is that the Earth is a living being. The most important communication George King took, and he took over 600, was on July the 8th, 1964, and it'd been it was the culmination of many transmissions and, more importantly, cosmic actions that had gone on beforehand, with a tremendous infusion of cosmic energy to the logos of the planet, to the logos of the Mother Earth. July the 8th, 1964. Dr. George King, in a positive yogic somatic trance, communicated the action as it was being conveyed at that time, taking place at that time. It was conveyed through him. It's the most important, not that we rank these things, but it's the most significant of all the transmissions. A tremendous infusion of cosmic energy being given to the logos of the Mother Earth, who has withheld herself for these 18 million years. She's denied herself these energies for our sake. She's held herself back. The karmic law had stepped in and said, enough. It can only go on under karmic law, by karmic law, for so long. And the Earth, or the sort of living intelligence, the consciousness of the planet, had a choice either to release that energy immediately or gradually. There's a gradual release, but it's playing out, and we're seeing this quickening. Unquestionably, I mean, the people you mentioned, who've had these near-death experiences passed over. Yes, there's an incredible transformation that is going on. Again, it is the sorting of the wheat from the chaff. We still have free will. There are those who are still tragically and sadly, most stuck in darkness. And our world, and a lot of them, unfortunately, seem to have a tremendous amount of sway. Although we each have the choice. We each have the choice. We don't have to be controlled. I don't want to, again, get down rabbit holes or get political about this, because it's essentially and fundamentally, it's a spiritual issue. We all have a conscience. We all have that inner voice of truth. We all have a heart, and we have to have the bravery to listen to it, to hear it, and to act upon it. In fact, in 1961, there were 9 transmissions communicated through George King. We call the 9 freedoms. And they outline this journey of evolution that we're on in our solar system. And the first of those freedoms is bravery. It begins with bravery, the courage to know what's inherently right and true within oneself. What's behind that is love, which is the second of those freedoms. The third one is service, which, again, is what the Aetherius Society is all about. Being of service. coming from a point of love, that leads to enlightenment. Enlightenment to cosmic consciousness to ascension. Ascension to what? Not some sort of, mythical heaven sitting at the right hand or left hand of God, whatever God is. No, interplanetary existence, the higher dimensions of existence. And beyond that, within our own solar system, the eighth of those freedoms is Saturnian existence. Saturn is the most advanced, evolved planet, planetary culture in this solar system. But even beyond that, solar existence. See, everything's living. Even the galaxy is living. There's nothing that's not living. There's nothing in this creation, this manifestation of, in inverted commas again, God, that is not a part of God. It's all a part of God. It's all interconnected. It's all divine. We just need to come into a greater realization and understanding of it. And it's happening with shows like yours and so many other shows like this. This awakening into this far greater realization of what we're a part of. And it's also, again, in a fascinating way in some ways, and yet in an inevitable way in other ways, playing out on that political level, with Congress being forced, and they're being slow, and they're dragging their feet, and they don't want to face it because it's difficult to face, because they don't have the answers. What politicians are supposed to have the answers. They're even more dumbfounded than the rest of us as to what it's about, because it's about love and it's about spirituality, and so much of their world is corrupted. If it's not corrupt, but it's corrupted. It's corrupted. It's so different from what Christ taught, from what the Buddha taught. It's so different from that. And it can't last, and it won't last. Another big part of their message.
So from everything that you've studied and come to understand through these transmissions, what do you see this evolution doing? So when I've been on the other side, the only thing I could see was it's like in the game of life, at the most simple level, there were two aspects. You were supposed to wake up and you were supposed to remember that you were loved. Those were the two things that primarily every entity on the planet was meant to achieve. And whether they did or didn't isn't a good, bad, better, best. It was just part of the game that we created for ourselves. But once that happens, that awakening happens, what do you see happening on the planet? Like, do half the inhabitants who are stuck in fear disappear? Do people go to a different dimension? What do you understand is coming?
What I understand is coming. And again, I've already, mentioned a sorting of the wheat from the chaff. It's an individual choice. It's an individual choice. But for those who are awakening, for those who cannot ignore their own intuitive higher self any longer, and there is love behind it. I think that I think the world needs two things. One of them is shock. We need to be shocked. As a human race, collectively, we need to be shocked out of the horror and the ignorance and the stupidity of what we've created. And the other thing, and it's probably tied to that shock, is we need a collective weep. The human race needs to weep. We need to weep, because inside ourselves, intuitive, we know what the God that what it really is all about. We know that it's about love, it's about beauty, it's about greatness, it's about profundity on just so many levels. So in terms of the future, there are those who are stepping into that. And there are those who are still blind to it. And that's a personal choice. And I, people can not only be blind to it, but dig their heels into it. That we have lower astral realms. There are higher realms, which, we've alluded to a bit. There are lower realms. as I mentioned to you earlier, this is Lord of the Rings. There are dark forces. I mean, within creation, there is, again in inverted commas, evil. There are evil forces, only in the grand scheme temporarily, because ultimately it's all from God. But it can still temporarily can still be for a very long time, in our understanding of time. And you to a very large extent, it's held humanity in its shackles. We've been held back by lower astral entities, holdings. Why do we have war? Why do we have hate, greed, crime, drugs, all the rest of it, depression? You only got to look and see the world as it is in so many ways. And there are those who are sort of behind that and pushing that, and those who are ensnared in it. That the bell is ringing. The karmic bell is ringing. You can stay there if you choose to stay there and be stuck with that. And you will be reborn on a younger world, on another world. Nothing can be taken out of creation. It's still all about love in the grand scheme. But you'll be taken elsewhere because this planet is changing. Her vibrations are changing. They're quickening. They're heightening. And so in terms of the future, and the question is, well, how long will this take? I mean, it's happening by degree. It's happening by degree. But ultimately, I don't want to say utopia because that's sort of probably misunderstood, but it will be infinitely more evolved. It will have intelligence, high intelligence, and with a love, with a greater cosmic realization, with the ability to time travel, space travel, these things, all with a greater consciousness and realization and understanding of the totality and magnificence of, in inverted commas, God.
So when you talk about a higher intelligence, we're in 2025. You'd have to be living under a rock to know that AI, artificial intelligence, has not been a massive part of the conversation in 2025. Do you think that we will move forward in these dimensions as the species of human that we're incarnated with right now? Or do you think we're going to wind up with augmented, meaning assisted technology to assist us in getting there? Or do you think we will remain purely human without that augmentation?
Again, good and fascinating question. I guess, I mean, technology is a double-edged sword.
Yes, it is.
And used in the right way. I mean, look at us. This is a consequence of technology. Being able to talk to each other in real time,
Yeah.
see each other. And from anywhere around the world, and it's absolutely amazing and wonderful and incredible. And so long as you see again, there are forces that seem to there are seemingly forces that seem to want to control the human race, control humanity. I mean, it's not about control. It's about cooperation. And so again, if humanity's at this crossroads, there are individuals who, I mean, how do you get, dare I say, well, I won't name names, but people who wants to instigate world wars, anybody who wants to engage in war, continue in a war. What's that all about? Who's
Money.
behind them?
Money.
Well, but yeah, money and power.
Power.
Yes, I get that, but why? And there are those who probably want to use whatever tools and technology they can get to control humanity. It's up to humanity to the extent to which we allow that. Again, it's in the balance, but ultimately, I mean, coming back to Lord of the Rings, love and truth will prevail. I mean, they always will. They have to, because it's bigger than us. We're going. It's a, my goodness, the more one does away, it is a fascinating time to be alive. It's an incredible, I mean, it always is. It's always wonderful, and on that says there is no death anyway. But right now, wow, what a time to really, begin to open up and wake up to this fascinating multi-dimensional world that we're a part of, and become a player in it. I think that's very important. Become a player in it. This comes back to the service and the love, because it's serious, and to the extent that it's serious, it's dangerous. I mean, it is a world that can destroy itself, and we're here to prevent that. And we've got Gandalfs, standing behind us. But us here on Middle Earth, as hobbits, you could say. But I mean, we're very key players in this game at this time.
Paul, are you hopeful that we are going to be able to overcome the mistakes that we've made in the past with Meldak and Lemuria and Atlantis, and not blow ourselves up and actually get to the place where we have the chance to expand and evolve into love, into that utopia society where we are recognizing and understanding at the deepest level that we are one?
Well, part one of my book, as you know, is The Things I Knew Before I Was Born.
Yes, your pre-birth kind of memories that you have.
Yeah, the part one of the book, The Things I Knew Before I Was Born. Am I hopeful? I'm determined. I'm utterly determined.
I love that.
And so long as I'm determined, there's always hope. But I'm resolved. I'm resolved to carry my part of this torch.
Me too.
Which I know, I can see it. Which and it's why we have Maya.
Yeah, so let's talk about your book. You mentioned The Lord of the Rings, which is kind of the story of the book, but on an earthly realm, and with tying into what Dr. King was talking about with his channeled messages. And I want to just always say this. Nobody writes a book to get rich, because it just is like winning the lottery when that happens. People write a book because it's the one place that you can still go to tell what would be a 12-hour interview story and explain in all the detail, in all of the nuances and all the sequences that you want to get out there. And I know that John Peterson was intrigued by the book and wanted to read it. I have begun reading it. I don't read everything. I just don't have time, but it is an intriguing concept. And I don't know why I'm so drawn to it, but I have been.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think you speak for probably everybody who's actually read the book. I mean, it had some wonderful reviews from well-known people, other authors, internationally known best-selling authors.
Carolyn Mice being one who I had the pleasure of meeting about a month ago at the IANS conference.
Yeah. Well, actually, it doesn't have to be 12 hours, because I find I can read this book in 2 hours. But yeah, and this, it's a short book. I myself, I can't read long books, and who has time for reading books anyway in this day and age? When you've got wonderful YouTubes that you can watch, they absorb our time, certainly my book reading time. But no, it is. I mean, the book is. The things I knew before I was born. I was born in England in 1958. And I had a very happy childhood. I had very good, schooling, except I failed everything pretty much because I just didn't feel I was being taught anything I really wanted to know. I wanted to know, what the heck am I doing here? What's it all about? They don't teach that at school. So I sort of played more. And then when life got serious and I had to sort of, get a job and all that business, I was working in London in the wine trade, and it just hit me that there's got to be more to life than career and having a mortgage and getting married and having kids, etc. And I didn't know what to do, but I'd been raised in the Anglican Church. I had a Bible and I read it, and the four Gospels made profound sense to me. I recognized and realized here is someone who knows what it's really all about. And so I began going to church, actually initially Westminster Abbey in London, but later another church, a well-known church in Trafalgar Square called St. Martin in the Fields, who cares for homeless people. And my boss, who was a wonderful mentor, he was studying Eastern philosophy in London. And I started going there, which opened me up to the concepts of karma and reincarnation. And that made just as much sense as Jesus Christ was making. And his secretary had been to a place in Scotland called Findhorn, which had this phenomenal garden that had come out of communication with nature spirits. And I went there twice, loved it, again, made sense. She was also a member of the Aetherius Society that I'd never heard of, where this man, George King, was in communication with extraterrestrial intelligences. I just went with these things intuitively, because they made sense to me. And, I later wound up meeting George King, was invited to move to the American headquarters of the Aetherius Society in Hollywood, California, which I did in 1990, and became a personal assistant to Dr. King in the latter years of his life. As you say, he died in 1997, and I was one of his personal assistants, living with him full time in the latter years of his life. So I came to know him very well, and I've always known that at some point I would tell this story, because it is an utterly profound. The communications channel through Dr. George King, the work of these, we call them cosmic masters rather than extraterrestrials. We believe Jesus came from Venus, the Buddha came from Venus, Sri Krishna came from Saturn. And these masters are still helping us in unseen ways, in profound ways. They're orchestrating it and engineering it such that humanity can take our rightful place, rather than just destroy ourselves. And it is unquestionably a story that needs to be told, needs to be heard, needs to be understood, and it needs to be recognized. And it will be. It has to be in good time.
Well, either it's going to happen, or I guess we're going to reset again and come back and incarnate and do this all over again. And I think there are a lot of people on the planet who are rallying as hard as they can, like you, like me, so many others, because we are just wanting to yell at everybody, wake up.
Yeah, I do think it is happening there, but we do need to sort of link arms. And one thing that's said is that the forces of darkness are well organized, and the forces of light are very sort of dissipated. And we do need to not sort of try and climb over each other. It's not about ego at all. It's again one of the communications this given by an intelligence going by the name of Mars Sector 6 is cooperation will save you. Cooperation. Finding where, we do live, unfortunately, in this very materialistic society, sort of based to some extent on greed and competition. It's not about competition. It's not about greed and selfishness. It's about finding ways that we can help each other, cooperate with each other. As we increasingly wake up, we increasingly realize and remember that, as you were saying earlier. We're here to remember.
I agree. So I would imagine there are people who are watching right now who want to connect with you, Paul. So how do people do that?
Well, connecting with me is very flattering. Anybody's welcome to do that. And they can do that by my own personal website, which is sedimentofmysoul.com.
Okay, I'll put that down in the notes.
Okay. But if they're rather than me, but my message, well, there's obviously the book Muhammad, which is available from Amazon. But it's also, you know, the Aetherius Society. We're an international organization, non-profit organization. You're not in this, like, you don't write books and you don't get into spirituality for the money. At least, well, hopefully one doesn't. But we are a non-profit organization. We have a website, aetherius.org, and all of this is very much there.
Beautiful. Well, Paul, I've learned a couple of things today.
Only a couple, Laurie.
Oh, well, I learned quite a few things. There were definitely some concepts that I had not been exposed to before. One thing that I found interesting, I did a quick little bit of math when you were talking about Dr. King's ability to go into these states of yoga, these very high states, and you said he was doing this 8 hours a day, every day for 10 years. That's 29,000 hours at 8 hours a minimum a day.
Yeah. Well,
And we consider people an expert at what, like 10,000 hours?
Well, they do say that, but I mean, we're here on Earth. Actually, we're here on Earth to get up, to ascend. The reason we reincarnate, we're here to ascend, but it is a very challenging thing to do. And, you know, attaining cosmic consciousness, which is a prelude to ascension, of raising the Kundalini fully and being able to do it at will, to raise the Kundalini up through the Sushumna channel, opening the psychic centers that we all have in our aura. It does take tremendous discipline and intensity of focus. Very few have done it. I mean, we have the ascended masters who've all attained it. There are many ascended masters on Earth. There are some, and it's what we're all here to do. You know, Dr. King was extremely focused, and you see, he went through. He was, when the Second World War came around, he was 20 years of age. In 1939, he was born in 1919. He knew inherently, "Thou shalt not kill." He was not willing to go and kill Germans. Why do I need to kill a German? I don't kill any German. What have they done against me? But at the same time, he could recognize that, you know, Nazism and Hitler was a force certainly to be opposed. Then he joined the fire service in London at the age of 20, which went through the Blitz, the bombing of civilians. He saw the horrors of that, the madness of it, the insanity of it. When you, I think, well, in his case, when you've had an experience like that, you need answers. You need answers. Why what's our purpose here on Earth? And it drove him to seek those answers. And yoga was the path he took, and he was extremely disciplined about it, but he came out of it enlightened.
Beautiful. Well, I have loved this conversation, and I want to thank you for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Thank you, Laurie, and I love what you're doing, because, you know, without you, I remain even more in the dark, or unseen, as it were.
Well, I appreciate that. But of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, to comment, and to share these videos so that they can reach more people. And we're all doing the same job, helping wake up the collective. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye-bye.